The term wildcard has two different definitions in the League of Legends community. The first is a traditional definition, a team from a region that's relatively new or underdeveloped in the competitive scene. In League of Legends, we have a pretty big distinction between the 5 main regions who were all given access to the game from its early days, and the other smaller areas of the world who had localized versions and dedicated servers provided to them much later. Because these regions were a little late to the party, as it were, they haven't had that same kind of time to develop a healthy competitive scene, and their pro teams traditionally are weaker at international events as a result of it. Because these regions are a bit behind though, Wildcard has taken on a second definition in the broader community as an insult, mainly referring to whoever the weakest main region is at a given time, insulting their teams if they perform poorly at international events, questioning their status as a main region, etc, etc. But while it's easy for us to get wrapped up in our own little world of League, we might forget that the word wildcard has a real definition in the real world. Namely, a person or thing whose influence is unpredictable and whose qualities are uncertain. And that is exactly what these wildcards are, especially at the World Championships. They haven't won a title themselves or gotten first at a major international tournament. I won't deny the weaknesses that these teams and regions do have, as they will lose more often than they win. But that doesn't mean they don't win. They do. In fact, wildcard teams win so frequently that they have affected the results of almost every single world championship in the LCS era in major ways, and today we're going to celebrate that. This is a history of wildcards at Worlds.
Legendary 11 kill Tristana and Optimus takes the Penta. Gigabyte Marines are going to take the game.
They're taking down the LPL and Brazil has done it.
He's the greatest time! He's gonna get it! They did it! Oh my god, they did it!
ANX just took down the Rocks Tigers.
The first World Championship that had a wildcard system as we understand it today was Season 3 Worlds in 2013. There, a single wildcard team was allowed to attend based on the victor of a prior international wildcard tournament. Gaming Gear EU managed to take first place at the event, winning qualification as the representatives from the Commonwealth of Independent States, a group of nations previously belonging to the Soviet Union. After 2-0ing Brazil's Pain Gaming in the finals, they punched their ticket to Worlds, where people weren't expecting much of them and where they weren't able to do too much. They were placed in a fairly large group that consisted of 5 teams total, the other 4 being from North America, Europe, China, and Korea. They played to expectations for the most part, where of the 8 games they played in their double round robin, they lost their first 7, with none of their games being all that close. However, in the last game they played, they were able to get a single win. It was against TSM, the North American representatives, who were already eliminated from the tournament at that point, and who decided to have a bit of fun in their last game, doing some silly stuff to please their fans, like picking Teemo.
Just for harass as well. Alright, we warned you. Yep, there it is.
However much or little stock you might put into this result, Gaming Gear pulled off the win, and although it didn't mean much in isolation, it started a tradition where for the next half-decade, wildcards would put up some incredible performances. The next World Championship in 2014 would have 2 spots reserved for wildcards to attend. This time, the winner of 2 different international tournaments were given direct seeds into the group stage, who ended up being Dark Passage from Turkey and Kaboom from Brazil. Most people didn't expect them to do too much again, at least no more than the previous wildcard team, maybe picking up a meaningless game towards the end of groups, but finishing last and not having an impact on the standings. And this seemed like it would be pretty accurate early on, as Dark Passage would indeed go winless in their own group and ended up finishing last. But Kaboom was another story. Kaboom was in Group D, where they'd have to face off against Cloud9, the number 2 seed from North America, Najin, the number 3 seed from Korea, and Alliance, the number 1 seed from Europe. Alliance was a team that was made up of some of the former CLG EU stars, coupled with a few other big-name players in Europe, and had most recently won the European LCS Summer Split, To date, this is the only team in Europe not named G2 or Fnatic to win a European split, and they were very good. I mean, people expected that they would be making it out of groups alongside with the Korean representative. Throughout the first round robin, things were looking pretty standard in terms of what everyone expected, except Cloud9 managed to upset Alliance and now had a chance to make it out of groups. This was a really crazy underdog story for the lovable North American team. However, Alliance was able to take the second game in the double round robin, quelling any NA fans' excitement, as they would likely now have to play against each other in a tiebreaker to see who would make it out of groups. But then...
the charm goes down the gorilla, the shockwave misses, and Natty Whiteshield look like their impeccable record will fall here as Alliance strike revenge back on them and claim second spot in the group. The pressure very much will be on Cloud9 tomorrow. Alliance do it, they take down Natty Whiteshield.
Alliance had found a way to beat Najin White Shield, an incredibly impressive feat for the time, as most general Western League fans viewed Korean teams as simply invincible. On the final day of their group stage matches, the standings were shaping up like this, which was pretty heartbreaking for fans of Cloud9 or North America. Although they were currently tied with Alliance, and a tiebreaker in effect since they split their group stage series 1-1, they each still had one game left to play. C9 had to play against Najin, and Alliance got to play against Kaboom. Kaboom are 0-5 right now. They have nothing to play for. Alliance should just mop the floor with them, eliminate North America, and make a run for the title themselves, right?
Well, the Rune Prison will slow him down. Flash is available, he may need to use it. Oh, has to sidestep the Cocoon, the Repel will come on towards him. Left's gonna get one more hit. Look goes down, and Wicked, not playing Aurelia, gets caught out again.
And there was no more. Wicked can be ready with his ulti in case Alliance wants to fight. They seem like moving in. Whoa, Froggen.
Seem like they want to fight indeed. Frog gets it up here, but could be Nif next actually. They're looking for more kills on this one. Xenon's over the wall. Zap just misses. Nif could be the next one to go down in this fight. If Left gets over the wall, and kaboom goes the dynamite.
What the hell was that from? Like he's gone, he's out of the fight anyway.
They're going to try and push up mid as quick as possible. Alliance have to swing around and sweep and try and cause this one. The charm catches on Wicked. Tino's goes in. He got it. He takes him down. And that's going to cause real problems. Until they grab it. And the Nexus turret almost about to go down. Alliance has too much on their plate to consider. That's the fight. The control onto left. They are able to take him down. Danagorn very low. Shook. Going to get hit up start of the fight. They're going to win. Next turret is almost about to go down. Down. Alliance down. Kaboom. They flip the fuse. And they are going to take the game here. It's just a bit more. Frost is charmed up. And it's the kiss of death for him. A triple kill coming in for Tinos. And I can't believe it, D-Man. Kaboom takes the game over Alliance. What the hell just happened?
This was one of the craziest upsets in the history of League up until this point. A wildcard team who was winless and had nothing to play for but pride took down the #1 seed from a region that had just made semifinals at the last World Championship. It was unbelievable. Following up Alliance's loss, C9 would then manage to beat Najin to escape groups by the skin of their teeth. This game was the first time in League's history that a team designated as just a wildcard beat a main region in an important game at an international event. Up until now, most people just viewed wildcard teams being included at Worlds as a purely ceremonial thing. You know, they weren't there to compete, they were there for the main regions to beat. But Kaboom and Brazil showed us that that's not the case. And for the next 4 World Championships, we would see similar shocking performances that directly influence the result of Worlds. Once again, at 2015 Worlds, 2 wildcard teams were seeded directly into groups based on the victors at 2 international wildcard tournaments. The first was the Bangkok Titans, representing Thailand, who'd be put in an incredibly tough group and ultimately saw an early exit with a 0-6 scoreline. Pain Gaming from Brazil were the other representatives, and they were placed into a bit of a different situation. Pain were seeded into Group A, which consisted of the #1 seed from Korea, the Ku Tigers, the number 2 seed from North America, CLG, and the number 2 seed from the LMS, Flash Wolves, alongside themselves. Because the LMS region, which consisted of Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, was on a bit of a decline ever since they won Season 2 Worlds, this was seen as a pretty easy group for KOO and CLG to escape from, between a wildcard team, who should be easy free wins, and the number 2 seed from arguably the weakest Power 5 region at that point. Why should CLG or KOO fans ever expect anything but an easy path out? Well, at first, that's what it looked like was going to happen, with a bit of a fun twist. CLG started off 2-0, getting early victories against Brazil and Taiwan's representatives, but KOO, on the other hand, had a bit of a fumble, losing one of their games against Flash Wolves. KOO pulled off a pretty easy victory against CLG, regaining their Korean form, but Flash Wolves had all of a sudden made this group incredibly interesting with their win. They were in position to force a 3-way tiebreaker and potentially put CLG in jeopardy of being knocked out. But then
They are still nearby.
Right on the front line, hooks into you. Charm hits him as well. The tank doing his job. Surti hooked in. They get the first kill. Karsa goes down, but they trade back onto Surti. Mylan only hits Sword Art with the Meganar. BRTT into the back line, gets the first kill, pushes back Stake, and here comes the rest of the push. Stake has very little left to do. Can't get the kill. A triple for BRTT, and Kami maybe gets the last one. An ace. Even every single team in this group has a win, and every single team in this group has a loss. They're only one game away from first place right now, and Pain Gaming take a win over the Flash Wolves.
Pain had just beaten Flash Wolves in a hugely important match. They had dismantled the team that had crushed Korea's #1 seed. This was starting to make Group A look really interesting because there was still a full day of games left to be played, with everybody in group already showing quite a bit of vulnerability and weakness, racking up at least one loss. But still, this kind of looks like what we were expecting, right? I mean, Korea and North America getting out, LMS and the Wildcard going home. And at the start of the third day, it looked like that would continue. CLG dropped a game against KOO, Pain lost to Flash Wolves, and KOO demolished Pain. With only 3 games remaining, what should happen is CLG should beat Flash Wolves, KOO should also take down the LMS squad, and CLG should wrap things up by beating Pain. All this craziness would come to a close, with the results ending predictably. But none of that happened. CLG lost to the LMS team, Korea's #1 seed choked again, and on top of all of that, Pain beat CLG as Group A ended in chaos. Pain had not only secured the exit of CLG, but they had taken a game off the #1 team in the group, giving them one of their 2 losses, and what was supposed to be the group of life for CLG and KOO turned into a disappointment for both teams, with CLG eliminated and the Korean favorites finishing second. People didn't entirely know what to make of this at first. This was 2 worlds in a row where a wildcard team was able to have a major impact, beating some of the best teams in their group. At first, audiences believed this might just be the rise of Brazil, who was quickly becoming a dark horse region that could do a lot internationally if they kept developing at this rate. But it wasn't just Brazil, it was every wildcard region playing better and finding ways to be competitive. People were starting to give a little more respect to wildcard representatives, no longer assuming that they're just free wins at least. But even so, I don't think anyone was prepared for what was about to happen next. In the 2016 World Championship, we would see once again 2 wildcards seeded directly into group stage. The first was the Brazilian team, INTS, which everyone had their eyes on for obvious reasons. Brazil had caused 2 crazy group stages at the last 2 World Championships, and everyone was hoping this would be the 3rd year in a row. Although INTS was able to take a game off the Chinese representative Edward Gaming, they sadly didn't have too much of an effect on the ultimate result of their group and left fans a bit disappointed. However, the other wildcard team would be able to do a little bit more. Albus Nox Luna was the first team to qualify for Worlds from the Commonwealth of Independent States since Gaming Gear EU back in 2013. After their group stage seeding, most viewers expected that they would have similar results to Gaming Gear, picking up virtually no meaningful games, as they were placed into what might be the hardest possible group for them. They were slotted into Group A, which included the #1 seed defending LCK champions, the ROX Tigers. They were likely the favorites to win this Worlds, or at the very least make finals if nothing else, after destroying the LCK the previous summer split. In addition to ROX, ANX was also going up against the #1 seed from EU, G2 Esports, who had demolished Europe all year long, winning both spring and summer playoffs. Finally, rounding out their group was CLG, a team who had certainly struggled internationally in recent years, but who were now looking to redeem themselves as NA's #2 seed after winning the previous year's spring championship. All regional champions, all from main regions. It seemed like it was going to be impossible for ANX to even get a single win. The real competition here seemed to be who would be the team to make it out with the ROX Tigers between Europe and North America. After CLG beat G2 in the opening match of groups, it looks like they might have a leg up, but then
upset over CLG.
The later the game got, the better Albus Nox got at team fighting, and with these massive death timers and the Baron buff, they're going to look to push for the win.
Licrit is hungry and he wants to be fed. He won't find Huhi though. I think Huhi is going to get caught out. No, he's done it. Licrit's interrupted. The rest of Albus Nox, they're looking at the Nexus. They've taken down the turret. They've taken down another. And for the second time at Worlds, a Wildcard team has taken down another North American team.
CLG lost to ANX in a shockingly close game. This completely threw the group out of whack. Now, ANX and CLG were tied 1-1, with ANX having the tiebreaker advantage for the moment. The next day, as if to redeem themselves, CLG would beat the #1 seeded Korean team, the ROX Tigers, reminding us of who the real competitive teams were in this group. Except that very same day, ANX also beat G2.
They're gonna do it. They're having base clear. Only expect, and with the 11 Spectaster Flash, the wall's there. The Nexus turret's getting decimated. That's it. Last Nexus goes down. Nox 2-1 in the group. What beasts from the CIS region.
CLG's victory was supposed to be a redemption arc for North America, which instead turned into a three-way tiebreaker, with ANX potentially making it out of this group, which that would make them the first wildcard team to ever do so. One day was left where the whole second round robin would be played and everything would be decided. And as matches began, it started off somewhat normally, with G2 losing to ROX, which all but guaranteed their elimination. Now, CLG got to play against ANX to potentially get the upper leg on them, securing their path to escaping group stage. But who am I kidding? You guys know what happened next.
Stalos, where's the tempered fate? He's caught himself.
He has no flash either.
Afro moves the target, no flash. Too early on the light binding. End of the line. And Licrit takes down Afro.
They catch Huhi.
It's out. Pin onto Afro move. Afro's down. Huhi gets knocked up into the air. He's exhausted. Albus Nox have comboed everything perfectly. Licrit gets another. They take another tower. And now Xmithy's the target. Chaos Storm's gonna run him down. Xmithy. Albus Nox, 9 kills to 2, and they're peeling back for Baron. And I don't think CLG can defend this one. Albus Nox from the CIS, from the LCL, they are doing what no wildcard team has done before. Albus Nox Luna have got one giant foot in the door to Chicago, on the way to the quarterfinals.
ANX had just beaten CLG twice in group and now held the tiebreaker over them. And as much as they had shown us what they could do, as much as everyone had been impressed by ANX, I think even now we still kind of viewed them as just a wildcard team, you know? I mean, this was CLG and G2 choking, as they were prone to do internationally, right? This isn't actually ANX being good, is it?
Gonna spot the wall, but Staos actually goes in aggressive. Huge damage from the Nidalee.
and starting to bully around a bit. This is what Peanuts in Italy is known for, but take that pick away and Peanuts feeling the pressure. Smurf feeling the same, no on top as here we go mid. All of a sudden the action cues get in. Stay on center, there's first blood for ANX.
And that is so big for ANX right now. Blue buff reset on Stanos. He's gonna be and it's important to note that Rox does not benefit from.
Oh my god, goes in again, good stun, but Kuro's gonna get reset on. Dive bats incoming, Kira puts out the Hemoblade, Kuro's dead again! Hemoblade goes off and that's enough for the kill.
No summoners. As going for them right now is they don't really have a lot of wave clear, so they're heavily reliant on ultimates and summoners to penetrate towers.
Flush order from Smurf slows down Smurf, good ulti, no, he gets kicked out of the way, how did that work? As Bray gonna still chase him down, Trap's laid in, oh my god, he runs the line, and Bray's got red buff, but Staos is here, they're gonna turn it around, Bray almost gets shot, but Kira flashes in, and X just turned it on his head, and Peanut slammed into the wall, and X turned it up for the double. Gorilla looks for it, finds the flash, gets a pull 1 and 2. Liquid here to save them though. Has to burn the ultimate. Kira back in there. Gets Bray in the Hemo playing against Smurf. Gonna try and kick them out. He gets one. Oh my god, the Indian goes down. Peanut trying to count a miracle, but Bray's dead. That might be enough. Kira is gonna fall down as well. 4v4 and Bray.
They get ZZ Run Minish trying to stop these Minish from hitting the actual Nexus. They're killing all the CZ Run Voidlings first, and now everyone is fighting as well.
Go for it, I think they have to. Fight goes in, but Kura snipes on a miracle. Still keeping alive again. Nexus open, Kira trying to take down Bray, but the Nexus just a little too flexible. Liquid going for it. The hero of ANX. And it's not enough just yet. Rock's still alive again.
All these minions are hitting the Voidlings still. The Nexus is
go! He's the greatest
time!
He's gonna get
They did it!
Oh my god, they did it!
Albus Nox Luna made it out of the group stage at a World Championship, the first wildcard team to ever do so. They had dethroned the #1 seed from EU, the #2 hope from North America, and even beat what everyone assumed was the best team in the world. It was honestly incredible what they pulled off here. This was a group of death for them. How is this the time a wildcard escaped group stage? How is this the team that did it? They would finish off the group by losing a tiebreaker against Rox to get the #2 seed, and then were eliminated from Worlds in the first round of the playoff bracket 3-0 by H2K. But a statement had been made, and perhaps it was their success that encouraged Riot to invite more wildcard teams to Worlds the following year. Starting in 2017, Riot would include a play-in stage at every World Championship, which saw every wildcard champion from minor regions invited. They would then battle each other, as well as some of the weaker representatives from main regions, for a shot at making it to the main event. Play-ins most often consisted of a series of groups, with the majority of teams making it out, followed with a second round of best-of-5 series between those victors, determining who advanced past play-ins. This is a pretty neat idea, as it sort of brought that international wildcard tournament that used to be held separately to the world stage, giving every minor region some time in the spotlight. The first play-in stage at Worlds 2017 saw a few wildcard teams picking up some wins against the main regions, namely Fnatic dropped a game in their group stage against Young Generation, a Vietnamese team who made it to Worlds representing Southeast Asia that looked pretty strong, but in their best-of-5 qualification series, they would be seeded up against Team WE, the toughest draw they could have possibly had, as WE made it all the way to the semi-finals of that World Championship. They were naturally swept 3-0. When all was said and done, we sadly only had a single wildcard region escape play-ins in 1907 Fenerbahce, the Turkish representative. They'd be eliminated pretty quickly at the main event though, going 0-6 in their group stage. But this Worlds was still an interesting event for wildcards, namely because it kind of killed the idea of wildcards in the first place. Teams were no longer representing main regions or wildcards, they were just representing where they were from. Oceania, Latin America, Japan, Turkey, and for some regions, that line between what was a wildcard and what was a main region was really beginning to blur. For instance, the Gigabyte Marines, another Vietnamese team representing Southeast Asia, was given a direct seed to the main event. Although Southeast Asia had loosely been known as a main region in the past, it was really Taiwan and the LMS scene that was known for being competitive. Southeast Asia in general, and some of its smaller teams from Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, they were still largely considered wildcards. It was a big deal for Riot to give a Southeast Asian representative that wasn't from the LMS a seed directly to the group stage, and Gigabyte did a lot with it. They opened the tournament beating Europe's number 3 seed Fnatic, and then went on to beat NA's number 2 seed Immortals later on, eventually forcing a 3-way tiebreaker for who would make it out of groups, along with Korea's Longzhu Gaming. Sadly, they would lose their tiebreaker against Fnatic, getting eliminated in 3rd place, which was still ahead of North America, but while this was obviously a disappointment for people who are rooting for another ANX-like run, there was a bit of a silver lining here. Perhaps it was their success, along with young generations, that influenced this, but whatever the reason, Riot further blurred the lines between wildcard and main regions by separating Vietnam from the rest of Southeast Asia and giving them their own direct seed to the main event the following year. 2018 saw Phongvu Buffalo win the Vietnamese League and earned the first qualification to represent Vietnam as their number 1 seed, getting seeded directly into the main event group stage. In their group, they would be competing alongside Taiwan's Flash Wolves, Europe's G2 Esports, and Korea's Afrika Freaks, and by this time, people were finally coming around to giving wildcards some of the respect they deserve. There was a lot of hype surrounding Phongvu leading up to this Worlds, as plenty of fans were talking about them potentially being a dark horse to make it out of groups, especially after hearing discussion about how well they were doing in scrims, and just knowing about the fast and fun pace of League of Legends that they typically played. They would sadly not live up to all that hype, but they would still make some craziness occur here in Group A. Group stage started off in a pretty shocking way that few people saw coming. While most viewers expected Korea's representatives, the Afrika Freaks, to make it out with relative ease, as Korea had done in previous years, G2 beat them on day 1. Shortly after their game, Flash Wolves would beat Phongvu, which led many to believe that G2 was about to have a really great tournament, getting out of groups possibly in first, and then could maybe go for a pretty deep bracket run. This seemed like it was even more likely when Afrika lost again to Flash Wolves the following day. As long as G2 could beat Flash Wolves, I mean, this should all but secure their status as the best team in Group A. But then...
Big Cora moves in for cleanup duty. Pallet takes down Woodin in some Mortal Kombat as Perks is fighting the jungler and losing. And Phongvu Buffalo, it just feels like they can't put anything out of place. They're going to move in and smash this Nexus.
PvP still have 5 members alive, only 2 Nexus turrets stand in their way. G2, there's nothing left.
Yawnin still alive. Is there a something? No, it's just Wonder. Realm warping in to pad the KDAs of Phongvu Buffalo. Yesterday it looked a little shaky, but today it looks extremely clean as Phongvu Buffalo take down G2.
This was a major setback for G2, obviously, but it was still early in the group stage. When all was said and done, this group was looking way closer than people expected it to be, with every team neck and neck going into the last day's games, where the entire second round robin would be played, which did not start off well for G2. The day began with Afrika beating Flash Wolves, looking like they were back in their traditional Korean form. In the next match, G2 beat Phongvu, getting a little bit of revenge from their earlier upset. But then, Flash Wolves beat G2.
He can fight! Perk goes into the ultimate trying to keep himself alive! He's gonna go down to Betty! Flash Wolves are winning the fight! Flash Wolves are wiping G2! Flash Wolves are gonna take this game! And if it couldn't, they'll smash down the Nexus turrets! They'll bash down the Nexus! And 43 minutes into this bloodbath, they'll take the win!
Following this upset, Afrika beat Phongvu, which left the standings looking like this, which doesn't appear too disastrous at first if you're a G2 or European fan. It's just a 3-way tie between 3 great teams, except G2 only has one more game where they now have to face Afrika, the Koreans who are back in form, they're on a winning streak, and they're going to continue that winning streak by dismantling G2 and giving them a loss in their final game. Flash Wolves, on the other hand, they get to play Phongvu Buffalo, who at this point are eliminated from the event and have nothing to play for, and if Flash Wolves just win their game, they'll eliminate G2 from Worlds, securing the Korean and LMS teams advancing to the bracket stage. That's all they have to do.
Means we do get Glacier off at Sion in mid lane, and Zhuhao's trying to punish Maple before he even has Shroud.
Yeah, here's the communal game that we expected. Maple is going to take a lot of damage, and he's dead. That's first blood. Subs him for his first game of Worlds and picks up the first kill.
Pastry time, we have it all.
Side, and he wants to assassinate someone. He's hanging out in the Shroud. He's trying to zone them off. Pal looks for the play, but doesn't find it, and is now forced to flash away to safety. Maple just destroys the Gragas as he's dancing over walls, but Bonfu Buffalo, they actually re-engage. They get the flash bomb onto Sword Art as they lock him into the Hextech ultimatum. They force the Baron and they win the team fight.
Something that hasn't been possible.
The other side misses that taunt, puts up the Zeros, pumps the GA. Zeros so re-engages. I think PvP, they actually may have found the fight here. Big Cora with a clutch stasis. And the rest of the team piles in, and that's going to be a wipe. Flash Rob slews almost everyone in the back end of the team fight as Maple now popped his own stopwatch. W's going to land, Maple's going to die. Bonfu Buffalo win and win hard in this exchange.
That's the Elder Drake.
Good by Elder Dragon. Now starting to charge in, but I think PvP to turn around for the team fight here. Zeros again, Red through the backline. Harvey's dead already. There's the combo. Heroic captains for the Galio, charging it all in, and Big Koro will not be stopped. Harvey in zombie form is going to die as Null buys time against Maple. Palin now going to slow Mujin, who does not have Ragnarok available.
So we can keep it up.
Find out here, Maple is just getting shredded down by the Windsor 4 and the Elder Dragon buff. Bonfu Buffalo, they want a second win here at Worlds. They want the upset. Maple, he finds the outplay, but the next is exposed. A big card. He's just gonna rip it to shreds. The upset is there, and the Flash will get destroyed at the end by that man there.
This Vietnamese win forced a tiebreaker that G2 ended up winning to escape group stage. This is that same Worlds that G2 would then go on to dethrone the heavy favorites to win Worlds, RNG.
G2 have just dismantled RNG, and they're gonna make their way to the semi-finals!
Imagine for a moment what would have happened if Phong Vu Buffalo didn't beat Flash Wolves here. I mean, if Flash Wolves make it out of group stage, then they're the ones that get seeded against RNG. They will likely lose, and Uzi will likely steamroll his way to becoming a world champion. I mean, we can only theorize about how the tournament might go, but that's honestly the most likely scenario. Phong Vu Buffalo very well might have taken a world championship away from Uzi with this win and given Rookie and the Shy their first world championship instead. I mean, that's beautiful, isn't it? That's what sports are all about, these kinds of crazy storylines and upsets. How great is it that we get to have wildcards at Worlds? They are criminally underappreciated for how much of an effect they have on every championship. 2019 was the first year in recent memory where no insane wildcard stories came to fruition. North America's Clutch Gaming had to play in some tiebreakers to escape their play-in group, and Unicorns of Love from the CIS almost snuck out of play-ins ahead of Europe's Splice, but fell in a series 3-2. Vietnam's GAM Esports got a win in the main event against Taiwan's J Team, but sadly none of this had any sort of greater impact on how the tournament unfolded as a whole. But think about that. 2019 was the first year since Season 3 Worlds where a wildcard team didn't affect how League's biggest tournament unfolded. Season 4, Season 5, Season 6, Season 7, and Season 8, 5 World Championships in a row saw their results directly influenced by these teams that beforehand people assumed would just be free wins for the main regions for the real competitors. But that's of course not what happened at all. I mean, these teams competed just as seriously as any other region, and they caused destiny-changing events, particularly for us in the West, where wildcard wins determined if EU win home early, if NA win home early, if both regions win home early. I mean, some of these games you could easily argue determined who won the World Championship. So honestly, I feel like it's well overdue that we get rid of the disrespect we put in the word wildcard and start giving these teams the love that they deserve. They are not traditionally good, but they aren't bad either. They're teams whose influence is unpredictable and whose qualities are uncertain. They may never win a world championship themselves, they may never make a final, a semi-final, hell, it might be another 5 years before one of them makes it out of groups again. But just because they don't end up as champions, that doesn't mean wildcards can't win. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this documentary. Special thank you to all the patrons who support the channel. If you'd like to see more documentaries like this, please consider supporting me on Patreon or checking out my Teespring merch.